What's up, guys? It is Richie here from the F1 podcast. Happy Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. I'm here with my man, Andrew Cleary. Andrew, how are you doing? Season
Good.
5, episode 23.
Nice. 23 already. Wow.
And the season is just getting even more spicier. So, to recap on this week's episode, we're going to touch briefly on the Dutch Grand Prix because we are filming this a little bit out of date. So, Andrew's going to provide a quick update. And then the bulk of this episode is going to be the Italian Grand Prix, which Max Verstappen absolutely dominated. Haven't said that name in a while in terms of that exact line. And we have some news that came out last week that the
Mhm.
Toronto Indy is moving to Markham, and what are the implications of the Honda Indy moving to Markham? Sorry, the Indy turned into the Markham Indy for the next 5 years. So we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll kick it off over to you, Andrew, very quickly, because obviously this is a later episode. What do you think? What did you think really of the Dutch Grand Prix?
Dutch Grand Prix was active. It had safety cars. It had DNFs. It had Oscar Piastri pole sitter starting, in the lead into turn one, but Lando was overtaken by Max Verstappen. So you had the battle between Red Bull and McLaren up, which didn't really last that long. But then you had Isaac Hadjar in P4, who was just an incredible story qualification wise. He's been really successful qualifying. I know that we were talking Daniel when we were talking with Daniel in our previous episode. It was, he was kind of one to watch as an opportunity. He did a fantastic job this week. That two races ago, when there was light rain over the radio, so there was people didn't have to use the intermediate tires. Leclerc came into the pits, joined first to kind of lead that moment. And he had a really good strategy. But then moments after he left the pit lane, Lewis Hamilton crashed into, I think it was turn three,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
same spot
And
as Charles Leclerc.
same, who, the safety car was then deployed. So then that kind of gave, Russell a pit advantage. It gave both McLaren's a pit advantage, and it allowed Verstappen another to get a pit advantage. Green flag coming back, and then we had Sainz and Lawson. They collided, which then the stewards gave Sainz a penalty on it when it was clearly Lawson's fault for kind of not knowing where he was on track relative to Sainz.
Yeah.
And it's a common theme because we had another penalty like this in Monza. And so you have to kind of question the stewards of what the hell is going on over there and why are the drivers who are not really causing the fault for the accidents because they're not ahead at the corner, quote unquote. They're getting the penalties, so to speak, in that sense. So he got a 10-second penalty. So pissed that he was gonna like Michael Schumacher, 1999 Belgian GP, get up out of his car and race over to the stewards and pretty much yell in their face. Would have loved to seen that. But, another VSC came out in lap 31. Unfortunately, then that kind of led to Leclerc, eventually down the road he crashed out as well. So a double DNF for Ferrari. That was tough. All because of Antonelli, who tried to pass him, and it was just an absolute rookie mistake
So
from
I,
Antonelli.
yeah, and
I'd
I
like to know
totally
your
agree.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. The racing line was there. He probably shouldn't have taken it, and obviously took a Ferrari out. I don't know if you know this, but on that track, particularly where Charles Leclerc got hit, um, there wasn't really a great access point for him to get back to the paddock. Because normally, when you have
No.
a collision, you would be able to, you get a cart back, maybe you walk back, or probably a cart to
Yeah.
go. Because of the area where he put his car or crashed, he was in the middle, like really in the middle of the track. So there was no way for him to go back to the paddock. So he was forced to sit there, contemplate about being a Ferrari driver and just having no luck this season in terms of wins or anything. Podiums are a different story. Yeah, 6 podiums I think he has. But still, just the frustration of a weekend that was in Ferrari, and especially with all the news leading up going into Monza, the home race, the Tifosi, and
Yeah.
they were out, unfortunately, to not cheer on Ferrari in the sense,
But
because they didn't get it. But we'll
it's
be
like-
good.
I would say I was so sad for Leclerc just sitting on the sand dunes contemplating life, and yet he had like six different cameras around him, couldn't go anywhere. So basically, everybody was just filming his reactions, and he's just like, okay, can we just get going? But really, the big key story was lap 65. What did we see at the end of Norris's car? Smoke.
Smoke.
And that meant his engine was donezo. So he goes from P2 all the way to P18 and cue the tinfoil hats, Ricci, because McLaren fans, Norris fans are saying that they gave him a non-reliable car on purpose. Why does Oscar get all the reliability benefits? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, shit happens like this. But unfortunately, that created a 30-point gap in the championship where it ended up having Oscar Piastri converting his pole position to P1, driving a fantastic race, Max Verstappen P2, and little Mr. Hadger, he kept P4 throughout the entire race, and with that engine failure, Isaac Hadger with his first ever podium in a Grand Prix or no F1 Grand Prix, the first under the Racing Bulls name since Pierre Gasly when he finished third at the 2021 Azerbaijan Grand Prix as part of AlphaTauri. So my driver of the week is obviously Isaac Hadjar.
Yeah.
Congratulations, sir.
And also, I totally forgot. Yeah, last podium since 2021. And I think it was Pierre Gasly who also won in Monza in 2020 under the AlphaTauri name. But yeah, just so that puts the scene
Right.
in as we
Yeah,
move
puts the
over.
scene. We're going into Monza with a double DNF for Ferrari. They're wanting to come home, firing out of gates this week, and we have now Oscar up 34 points in the championship at the time, with Lando being having to fight his way back. So what happened at Monza this weekend, Ricci?
So it was interesting in the sense that, obviously with all the media and everything going on, what is Ferrari going to do at this track? I think let's be realistic. I think I talked last week that I had hopes of a podium, but maybe free practice you kind of saw they had some good pace. The Ferraris were looking pretty decent. However,
Well, they were the fastest, and then Lewis Hamilton tweeted, "What's the lap record at Monza?" He was so confident. I love that.
and God bless, because I think that's what Fred Vasseur is after this weekend. It looked like he was able to gain some confidence in himself. There was maybe some more, I don't know how you say this, like some beef into his, I don't know, just like a little bit more confidence. I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
that. Yeah, hold on, I'm gonna say. I think this weekend obviously helped his confidence while they did not win the race or didn't do probably in their standards. I think there could be a positive going forward. Having said that, they call Monza the Temple of Speed, and Max Verstappen showed why the Italian Grand Prix. He had the record-breaking time, the record-breaking speed. That was the fastest Grand Prix in history.
I know. And the thing was, when Lewis tweeted out, if I was Max, I would have replied, just look at my qualifying lap, bud.
You lose.
Average,
Because
yeah, go ahead.
because
You
he
do this.
averaged 264.681 kilometers an hour, which eclipsed Lewis's record at the 2020 GP with that Mercedes. That was an absolute rocket ship that year. And but you wouldn't have known that Max set the fastest lap because the TV directive were too busy watching the McLaren garage clap for, Lando and Piastri's P2 and P3 finishes. They didn't show him crossing the line, which is a joke.
So Lewis has to serve a 5 second penalty. So he went from I think P5 to P10.
Right.
Leclerc I think got P4. So you're kind of going into the weekend what you're thinking of like what's going to happen. And just think about it. You didn't. It was a clean race. Obviously, no safety cars, nothing. However, there was some controversy in team orders. And we need to kind of get into that. I don't know. Oh, sorry, did I just like freeze for a second?
You're good. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, sorry. There was some team order issues. Let's start with the start of the race. So you had McLaren, and I think Verstappen on mediums to start. So it was going to be a one-stop strategy. And those mediums, like just how fast they were going on this track, they didn't look like they want to stop. They had to stop.
So it confuses me. Like Pirelli, how the heck can like on some courses, right? Their mediums last 53 laps. And then otherwise, it's like we need two, three strap strategies from like the tire compounds aren't really making any sense anymore from Pirelli's perspective. And it's just, it's we kind of need a new tire supplier in a way to make to make it more competitive.
Yeah, it's not only that, but like yeah, record time. The total race time was an hour, 13 minutes and 24 seconds. And you know Verstappen winning at an average speed of 250 kilometers an hour or 155 miles per hour. Previous record was set here by Michael Schumacher for Ferrari in 2003, where he was at 247 kilometers average speed.
Yeah.
This is only the second time the fastest race record has been broken in the last 54 years. It's pretty remarkable. But so while there's not little infighting, things starting to kind of got a little weird towards the end of the race. So Max Verstappen pitted because he had to pit for hards,
Yeah.
as part of the regulations. They have to pit once. Both McLaren kept both their drivers out, and then
I think they were hoping for a safety car or something because Max was just steaming up the back of them. He was taking off like 1 to 2 seconds per lap after pitting on the hards. So I think at some point they were just praying for someone to crash, someone to make a mistake, right? And then they get the safety car and then maybe be able to finish 1-2 in that sense, with Lando being ahead of Oscar Piastri.
and
Key. That's the
and
key, right? Lando being ahead of Oscar Piastri.
that's the key, but also then they got hit with a a slow pit stop. Something about the wheel gun not working.
Okay,
So
so and this is what confuses me. Okay, one on Lando's term. Why are you giving advice in the sense that why are you letting your championship rival, your teammate, undercut you? If you have the um
priority strategy.
if you have the position on your teammate, the undercut's very powerful. Why don't you just take that? Because less risk, right? In that sense of um you can be able to get out of the pits and make up the time should there be a slow stop, so to speak, right? As opposed to having your teammate undercut you potentially, which then led to a 3 second greater pit stop for him because of a left wheel gun issue, which I thought was pretty BS from the McLaren pit crew.
When it was just awkward, and then he got asked to give the position back, and then there's just this like, are they manipulating the championship? Like, it was mind-boggling, and I forget who got quoted, but I'm reading this quote. Today we started the pit stop sequencing. We started the sequencing pitting Oscar first, but when the clear intent, well, we would have not swapped the positions. Unfortunately, this compounded with the fact that they had a slow pit stop for Norris. This is
But that's
Andrea
part of the
Stella.
rule, but that's part of the game. Like, I don't know if it's deliberate, which would, you kind of worry that like I don't know how it's a very like I don't know how the wheel get jammed. Like you could see him pull it out, kind of just stood there. He had to get tapped on the shoulder again. The left front guy had to get tapped on the shoulder again, then to reattach it, and then he pulled it out. So you almost wonder like, how did you not notice in time? Like that's your job.
Yeah.
In a sense, right? Like it was just very slow, very not manipulative, but it was just convenient for Piastri's race. But the thing is, you talk to Rosberg, right? That is part of the team game. And at what point do the papaya rules stop? You know what I mean? Because this just opens Pandora's box for anything.
So we're gonna allow this here. We're gonna maybe do like Australia, Hungary, like Piastri's first race for a win. We're just gonna it's I think okay. So like next week, or sorry, when they go to Azerbaijan, they're pretty much gonna clinch the constructors as long as
Oh
they
yeah,
score 10 points more than
that's over. It's
yeah
over.
yeah.
Like
They could
constructors,
celebrate. They could
it's pretty
celebrate
much a
that next weekend.
formality. It's just a formality at this point.
But it's like this has ripple effects for next year. And we talked about like how other teams, it's not like I don't like they're obviously the Rosberg Hamilton when that feud happened, Rosberg retired after winning. Like these guys are still under contract. They are still trying to figure. And I just love how the Tifosi booed Lando there, and then they all chanted the da 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 da. Max Verstappen. Like
Like,
it was
here's my thought
kind of was
process on that.
happy. You know what?
Yeah,
Kind of as a Ferrari fan, it was I was happy to see Verstappen on the top podium. I'll be honest with that.
yeah.
Not those two.
Well, and it's just because I feel bad for Lando in the sense I don't think he deserved to be booed in that scenario because it's he made a wrong call and then the team kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt in that sense. He did race a better race than Oscar, right?
Yeah.
So at the time I tweeted out, I'm like, that's some BS from the McLaren pit crew because, that's unfortunate that Lando is now going to lose his P2 finish because of a bad stop. But then for them to reverse it, it's kind of like, okay, I don't know how much influence Oscar had in this. I mean, how much Lando had in this situation, but yeah, unfortunately, I think they were just booing him because of the kind of like
The rivalry, if you want to call it
the
that.
rivalry, but also just based on the decision making of McLaren's strategy overall. And hearing Max on the radio just dig into McLaren based on that strategy was hilarious going
Yeah.
down the stretch.
He also is like, I don't, he's like, he's won the Italian Grand Prix a couple of times already. And he said, he's like, now I got to maybe start learning how to speak Italian to the crowd. Just like, and I also didn't realize how much Nico Rosberg really loves Monza. Like, he won that in 2009. And when he was on the podium, he started speaking full Italian and everyone went crazy. But this was the first Red Bull first Grand Prix victory without Christian Horner as team principal.
And then is it now fair to say is the championship fight back on for Max? That would actually be insane if he's able to tune the car because I guarantee you he's like Red Bull should just listen to Max in terms of setup. Screw the simulations. What do the simulations say? Who cares? Just give Max what he wants, right? Because that's what basically happened this weekend in terms of the rear wing and giving him, he wanted less wing in that sense, which led
Yeah.
them to the victory. Again, we're gonna go to like another track in Azerbaijan that is like it's tight, but it's super fast. So it's kind of like, okay, did we do that? You have to kind of listen to Max. And I know it's 90 points, but anything is possible at this point, right?
There's been bigger comebacks in previous. I think Kimi Räikkönen's win in 2008 was an example. Was it 2000? Yeah, 2008. I think he was like 50 points back or something like that, and he came back and did it.
Oh, oh 07, oh 07. Yeah,
Oh
but I know.
seven,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's true though, right? It's like we still got 8 races to go, a couple of sprints, and some of these tracks that Max really likes. He's really good at Coda. He's really good in Mexico City. He won Interlagos last year in the rain and probably one of the best drives of his career. And he wins at Qatar. So I mean, like this is a possibility here. And if
Yeah.
McLaren keep screwing around with their rules and costing their drivers points like they did last year, Ricci, then we might have another issue on our hands here.
Some other notable drives this weekend. I think we just need to give a couple applause to Isaac Hadjar starting from the pit lane, going to P10. Alex Albon. He's been able to pull out wonders with that car P14 from P14 to P7. Lewis Hamilton, while maybe this is not the result, he gained 4 spots from P10 to P6. Gabriel Borriello kept it up in the top 10 from P7. He ended up P8. Kimi Antonelli, well, he didn't, maybe the expectations were low. Kept it in the top 10. He did drop a couple of spots back,
Well,
but
he forced Albin off track there, like at another potential rookie mistake. So it's kind of like it kind of opens the question: does Antonelli deserve a demotion? Just on the way that he's been racing this season, it hasn't been fantastic. I know he's a rookie and he's learning a lot. He's very young, but it's just been like two big mistakes that cost like it didn't cost him points in Monza, but it cost him in the Dutch GP.
yeah. And I think some other notable not good weekends, Yuki Tsunoda didn't have one. Fernando Alonso, for some reason, has not been did not does. I don't think he does well in Italy per se. He had another DNF. Yeah, Ollie Behrman, Carlos Sainz, as I'm wearing the Carlos Sainz shirt, his frustration, color Carlos Sainz. I think he's driving out of frustration rather than I don't know, pride, or I don't know what the word I'm looking
Well, I don't blame
for.
him. It's been a very tough season for him. He
Yeah.
hasn't really gotten any luck. He got a 10-second penalty last week, which he thought was unjust. I felt it was unjust as well. So it's a lot of factors are coming into play for him that unfortunately I think he's just super frustrated with everything going on.
Yeah. So time will tell. Obviously, like I think the stories, it's like, what the hell is McLaren gonna do in Azerbaijan? And I'm curious. We're gonna probably do a preview episode next week and see what news articles come out. Um, Before jumping into the next part about how the Toronto Indy is moving to Markham, some big news in terms of F1 drivers reserves. Colton Herta has signed on to be Cadillac's reserve driver, and the rationale behind this is he needs to get his super license to be able to kind of race in Formula One. So the rationale is maybe that he's going to spend some time in F2. And we've talked about Colton Herta. I've interviewed Colton Herta. I've asked him questions at the Honda Indy, and I was not surprised when I saw this news. He does have a bright future ahead of him, and hopefully, with some of these drivers that are struggling, he'll be able to show what's possible.
It would be cool to see like that open the door for other drivers, such as like because Bottas and Perez are not going to be there forever, right? So they're going to have to bring some new blood in. It'd be great to see Herta get a super license and then drive for Cadillac. But maybe guys like Rossi or Pato O'Ward, those guys are performing really well
Hmm.
in F1, or sorry, in IndyCar, make that jump to F1.
And a
Because
reminder,
you
yeah.
see it the opposite way around a lot, right? You see a lot of guys who are reserve drivers F1, F2, kind of hit their peak or kind of hit their maximum ceiling in the sport, and then go to IndyCar. So it'd be cool to see the vice versa in that sense.
Yeah, and I think time will tell, and I think it'll be a good opportunity to learn from drivers like Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, especially as they're developing that 2026 car, and especially that first year. So a reminder, he last raced for Andretti Global. So we're going to obviously wishing Colton Herta all the best. So let's segue. Speaking about Honda Indy, some big news that came out in Ontario here last week. The Toronto Indy is moving to Markham. So this is a multi-year deal. It's going to happen more than once. So Wednesday's announcement marks a major detour for the annual open race wheel auto race that has been happening at the X since 1986. Revealed the new race that will get underway on August 14th to 16th. Temporary 12-turn, 3.52 kilometer track, longer than the one currently happening at Exhibition, will be built in Markham's downtown core between
Yeah.
Kennedy Road, Enterprise Boulevard, Union Go tracks, and Highway 407. The track will also feature a double-sided pit lane. I'm kind of looking forward to that straightaway that they have, top speeds of 180 miles per hour.
Well, yeah, and
Um,
it's also got like a weird kind of roundabout, right? It almost like if you look like this was never a circuit that was officially raced at, but Hanoi Street Circuit had a similar idea where it was going to be a kind of like a big roundabout that went into a long straight. Similar idea in Markham. It's going to be interesting because it goes across the tracks twice. So it should be fun. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's good to be moving it on. You've heard a lot of drivers complain about the surfaces
yeah,
of the city streets around where the current circuit is, on Lake Shore, on Ontario, Manitoba. It's not consistent, right? You're going into like three or four different types of asphalt. It gets confusing. So I think a new fresh start, a new street circuit in Markham, it should be really exciting, in my opinion.
I think, yeah. So while I thought this was going to be a 1 year just because of the World Cup, people need to understand that yes, that is, but currently, I think the current contract was with the city of Toronto is they kept signing it year by year, and I think the company that is running it, they wanted stability, and Markham said they put their hands. The mayor said, "Start your engines. I'm in. Let's get this done." And yeah, it will be a different, like, maybe we'll go back to Toronto in a couple of years, and maybe if we have to really be realistic about this, maybe it is a loss for the city of Toronto, or a loss for Toronto
Well,
and a gain for Markham. But I would also argue that there's going to be a lot of work that's already happening on exhibition already. You have the Ontario Place stuff. You have the changes going over to Budweiser stage. And then also like the World Cup, they're going to be adding more seats into BMO Field. So at what point was there so much capacity already on exhibition?
Well, it's funny because I was talking to friends
And
about
Ontario,
this.
sorry, and Ontario line. I should
Yeah.
have forgot to mention that too.
Well, and that's the thing, right? If you're going to put Ontario line, that's just going to be a whole slew of just added infrastructure that they're going to have to deal with during race day, right? And that sort of, at that time, I was talking to friends and they said like it's super congested down at that time with the Honda Indy on. And they're like, it's pretty stupid in terms of where it is. And I kind of agree in the sense that, but I think 25 years ago, when there wasn't as much development around that
Correct.
area in the city of Toronto, it was a perfect spot, right? But the city has grown, the city has outgrown the track in that sense. So I think it's natural to have that move to somewhere like Markham, where it's quieter, but I mean, the facilities are there. It's a pretty affluent city in terms of economic development. So I think it's going to be a very great opportunity for IndyCar to flex its muscle in the GTA, and I think it's going to bode well for the city of Markham in the long run. It's going to generate tons of tourism revenue.
Yeah, I personally I think it's going to be a wait and see. I think there are some general questions coming when it comes up to this, moving it to Markham. Concerns about transportation. The Stouffville line currently runs every hour trains. You have two major highways. Yes, that is convenient for your car, but like, where's the parking?
Fair.
Um,
Well, and then there's also line one, like the subway station, like line one on the subway, you can go up that way, I think. It's just good, now that you have like a solidified spot for the next 3 to 5 years, you can then work out those systems. And I'm not expecting year one
no,
everything to run smoothly. It will not run smoothly.
no.
But subsequent years, it will. So
Yeah,
just
and
IndyCar fans be patient that way.
yeah, and I think this is why a 5 year deal obviously makes sense in that aspect. And the city of Markham, like, yeah, we want it to do well. There's obviously some questions that come up in terms of things, and maybe it's going to take some time to realize. And it's you said it earlier. It's first year is there's going to be a lot of growing pains. Like every festival, everything you learn where your holes and where you need to fix it. So like we obviously are excited to attend next year. We're excited to cover it, interview some fans, and we want this to succeed. And eventually it might come back to Toronto, but there are obviously going to be some big questions of if it comes back, what does the track look like with all the new development going on in that area?
Right. And like the thing is like they're gonna have to pave every road. If they want to do it back, they're gonna have to redo all the paving
So
and make it consistent. And that's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of hassle.
yeah, so congratulations to the city of Markham. Big deal for this announcement, and we're obviously looking forward to attending that. The Ontario Honda Dealers Indy Markham. So, my name is Jonathan. This is Andrew. This was what episode is this? Sorry, season
23, I
five.
think.
Yeah, season 5, episode 23 of the F1 podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode, and tune in next week where we'll preview the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Thanks, everyone.